Okay, so to continue, yan, for example, actually ano to itong klase ng problem na to, makikita natin to sa cost accounting. So, I will not discuss this further kasi ano to kailan ko ba to tinik? Like third year college. Yan, part ng cost accounting. Yan, so yan, siguro basahin ko lang yung problem so you can just imagine kung paano siya nasa-solve. Pero I will not discuss this kasi pang higher year na siya. Okay, remember that the expected sales of Jenny Trading for 2019 is 40,868. Assume further that there are 3 types of raw materials required for to produce unit of finished products indicated as follow. So for the material A, like yung raw material A, we can produce 2 units. Yung material B naman, we can produce, this can be used for 3 units. Yung raw material C naman is, we can use this for 5 units. So, ano siya, parang 3 units, 3 raw materials is important to create 1 unit. Okay? Yun nga lang, kunyari material A, pwede natin siyang magamit sa 2 unit na yon, and yung material B naman, yung raw material B naman, magagamit natin siya sa 3 unit, and then yung material C, magagamit natin siya sa 5 unit. Okay? So to manufacture 40,868 finished products, the total requirements are as follows. Okay, so material A, 2 units. Oh no, mali pala to. Okay, so erase. Okay, so yung material A pala, to create this 1 unit, we need 2 raw materials, 2 raw material A, tapos 3 na raw material B, and 5 na raw material C. Tapos we need to produce 40,868. So yung material A, so kailangan natin ng 2 niyan para makapag-produce ng 40,868. So yun, minumultiply lang siya by 2. Same with the raw material 3 na kailangan natin ng 3 raw material B na yan para makapag-create ng 1 unit. So multiply natin kung ilan yung gusto nating ma-produce. Like 3 units times 40,868. Then yung material C, 5 unit yung kailangan natin para makapag-produce ng 1 unit. So 40,868. Okay? So, yon, ito yung mga kailangan nating bilhin, no, na raw materials para ma-meet natin tong finished products natin. Okay, so to determine the total cost of material required to manufacture the product, the number of materials requirement is multiplied by the prevailing price of the raw materials. For example, yung material A is 1.50 per unit siya. So, yun nga, i-multiply natin yung 81,000 by 1.50. So, the total cost to purchase material A will be 122,604. Yan. So, yun, we'll not discuss this further kasi part ito ng cost accounting. The production schedule, another important element in the production schedule is the labor cost. So when we say labor cost, ito yung pinapasweldo natin sa mga gumagawa ng product natin. Okay, labor cost refers to the amount paid to workers directly involved in making the product. Okay, so hindi to yung mga accountant, hindi rin to yung mga managers, hindi rin to yung mga security guard, hindi rin to yung mga nasa marketing. So ito talaga yung mga gumagawa mismo ng product. Okay? Labor cost. Okay. production schedule, like for example, itong problem, Genet Trading needs 25 workers to make 40,868 finished products. Based on past year's performance, 3 hours is required to finish one product. Okay, since 40,868 units are expected to be produced, the total number of direct labor hours will be 122,604. Kasi, di ba, 3 hours daw yung kailangan para matapos to yung isang unit. So, we'll multiply 40,000 to 3 hours. So, in case the labor rate per hour is 8 pesos. Okay, so ano daw, per hour daw, or yung hourly rate ng per unit, ayan, yung per hour is, yung labor rate per hour is 8 pesos. Okay, so then the projected labor cost of 40,868 will be 980 million, parang almost 1 million na din, 980,000. Okay, so yung 122 na direct labor hours will be multiplied by the labor per hour. Ayan. And then, sa 980 na yan, para malaman natin kung magkano yung sinusweldo ng kada worker is, ayan, a total of 980 divided by 25. Okay? Pero, ayun, syempre, yung 122,000 na to is i-divide natin din siya sa 25 workers. So, yun yung, yung sinasweldo nila. So, ideally, the amount of increase in assets is equal to the amount of increase in liability and capital, so that the fundamental accounting equation is not violated. However, when the expected or required increase in asset is more than the increase in spontaneous liability and increase in profit retained by the business, additional funds from other sources are needed. And spontaneous liability refers to accounts payable, accruals incurred by the business because of increase in assets other than the property, plant, and equipment. And so additional funds needed by the business. So yung projected increase in assets. And then less natin yung increase in liabilities. And less natin yung increase in retained earnings. So when we're computing so when we're computing the projected increase in sales, so yun nga, change in sales, and then multiplied by the current assets over the sales. So kumbaga parang when we say change in sales, like 20%, nag-increase ng 20%, so 120, no? 120%, for example. And then current assets, yung current asset natin ngayon is over the sales, multiplied by the current asset over the sales. And when we compute naman yung increase in liability, current liabilities, change in sales multiplied by current liabilities over sales. Increase in retained earnings, yung earnings natin after tax minus yung dividend payment. Yung dividend payment naman is, ito yung distribution ng mga income or ng profit to the shareholders. Okay, so for example, if a manufacturing company presents the following information related to 2018 results of operation. Okay, so we have sales here, 7 million. Current asset for 4.2 million. Non-current asset, 2.8. Current liabilities, 0.98. Non-current liabilities, 0.77. Ordinary shares, 4.2 million. Retained earnings, 1.05. So the cost of sales is 60% of sales. And so yung ano daw, yung gastos daw natin para makuha itong sales na to is 60%. So what is the 60% of 7 million? It's around 4,000, it's around 4,200,000, no? Yung cost of sales natin. Yung operating expense naman daw is 25% daw ng sales. Okay, so what is the 25% of sales? Parang 1/4. So around 1,750,000 yung operating expense natin. Interest expense daw is 245,000. Yung tax rate natin is laging 30%. Usually, laging ginagamit is 30%. And then dividends to shareholders is 60% of the income. So meaning, pag sinabi natin yung dividends, ito yung parte, no, na dapat ibigay natin sa shareholders galing sa income. Okay, so because of the higher demand of the product and increased share in the market, the business expect a 10% increase in sales in 2019. So non-current assets in 2019 are expected to increase, including non-current liabilities spontaneous to increase in sales. So require, determine whether the additional funds are needed because of the expected increase in sales, or and then prepare the projected statement of financial. So let's do this next quarter. Solve natin to next quarter. Okay. And so next naman is chapter 7, budgeting. So at the end of this chapter, students should be able to discuss budgeting, identify the benefits of budgeting, and explain the budgeting process. So yun nga, parang kapatid to ng forecasting, no? Yung budgeting. So when we say budgeting, and it is the process or act of preparing a financial budget. Okay, so magkano yung magiging funds natin, no, para mapatayo natin itong business na to, parang ganon. Budget refers to a plan which is expressed in quantitative monetary value. In other words, a budget is the final output of the whole budgeting process. Simply stated, the budget simply indicates the amount of money involved to realize and the approved strategic and operating plans of the business. Ayan, no? So, tawag dito, magkano ba yung budget natin or yung mga expected nating fund para makita natin, no, kung profitable ba yung business or afford nating magpatayo ng business. And ano yung mga ways natin para ma-meet natin yung budget na kailangan natin. So planning is facilitated, financial coordination is established, resources are properly allocated, morale of employees are employed, control mechanism is enhanced. So these 5 are the benefits of budgeting. So yun nga, pag nakapag-budget tayo, no, alam na natin kung magkano ipapasweldo natin sa employees, and then mas nakakapagplano tayo, no, kung paano natin gagamitin yung mga resources natin. So there. Okay, so in preparing a budget, the following question are addressed. Who are involved in the budget preparation? Sino ba yung mga involved? Like, siguro mga accountant, mga managers, parang almost lahat ng nasa manager level. What period is covered by the budget? Ito yung mga, mga, parang every year naman or basta necessary, no? Nagbabudget ang mga company kahit established pa yan. What type of budget is prepared? So, depende, no? Depende sa objectives again, no? Kung ano yung types ng budget yung makikreate or yung kailangan nating gawin or i-prepare. Who are involved in budget preparation? Okay, so yon the budget committee or the finance officer, and then yung mga representative per division or per department. So yung marketing department, the finance department, and then the production, and then administrative or the mga admin, no? Admin department. Okay, so what period is covered by budget? Okay, so we have the short-term budget, like yung short-term planning. So this can be used or this budget is necessary for less than a year. So anchored on year budgetary requirements of each unit. Medium-term budget anchored on programs of each functional area, so per department. Strategic budget anchored on the vision, mission of the business. So, as a whole, no, yung buong company, and then more likely long-term to, pang long-term budgeting. What type of budget is prepared? We have the fixed budget, a budget prepared based only on one level of production capacity. So, for example, meron tayong target sales or target number of units to produce. So yun, meron na tayong mga fixed budget dyan. Flexible budget, a budget prepared showing the projected costs at different levels of the production capacity. Yung continuous or rolling budget naman, a one-year budget continuously prepared every month by adding another month once the current month has passed. And then yung cash budget, a budget that reflects the expected cash receipts. We have also sales budget, a budget that reflects the expected number of units to be sold based on forecast made from the previous year and marketing variables. Okay, so ilang units yung mapoproduce natin and depende rin sa performance no previous years. Itong production budget, a budget that shows the cost of producing the product. So yun nga, mag-check tayo kung magkano ba yung i-offer sa atin ng mga supplier, kung magkano kaya yung raw materials. Operating budget, a budget that reflects the sales and production budget. Financial budget, a budget that usually includes cash budget and budgeted balance sheet. And then capital budget, a long-range budget that incorporates the major expenditure for plant and machineries. Kumbaga parang ito yung mga non-current assets. Yung mga budget natin para doon. Master budget, the overall budget of the business. Parang din, yung kabuuang financial position. Okay, so process or procedure in budgeting. So first, we need to create the sales budget and mga expenses. And then, prepare the production budget. Kung ilang units yung gusto natin i-produce. Prepare the projected operating expenses and financing charges. Okay, so magkano rin ba yung maliban dun sa number of units, magkano kaya yung magagastos natin in creating that product. And then the financial and capital budget, and then the lastly, no, yung projected statement of comprehensive income natin, and then yung balance sheet. Okay, so for Chapter 8, Working Capital Policy. So at the end of this discussion, we should be able to describe the concept of working capital, identify the importance of having a working capital policy, discuss the investment policy and the level of current assets, and explain the various approaches of financing current asset. Okay, ano nga ba yung current working capital? Diba ito yung current asset minus current liabilities? Okay, so working capital strictly refers to current assets. It denotes the assets or properties owned by the business that are used, replaced, or converted into cash within the accounting period. Okay, so parang ano to, basta current asset less current liabilities. And usually, ito yung mga easily convertible to cash. Okay, so current asset are limited only to the following: cash, marketable securities, yung accounts receivable natin, and inventories. Within an adequate working capital, the business is able to perform the following. So maintain good credit standing with financial institution and other creditors. Siyempre, di ba, kapag sapat yung working capital natin, di ba kasi ang formula niya is current asset and less current liabilities. Kapag mas mataas yung current asset natin at sapat yung laki ng current asset natin, less na yung current liabilities. So that can be a good credit standing kapag nangungutang tayo or nag-loan tayo sa mga banks and other creditors. Settle the operating expenses of the business on due dates. So we can, since most of our current asset can be easily converted into cash, so we can now settle our operating expenses on due dates. Okay, we can regularly replenish the inventory. And since we are expecting the same inventory natin will be sold within a year, since part nga siya ng current asset. So yan, regularly replenish the inventory. Avoid default risks and exploit business opportunities. Okay, so when we want to expand or tawag dito, magtayo ng another branch, since may sapat tayong pera, may sapat tayong working capital, so hindi na exploit no yung mga other business opportunities such as expanding. It is most appropriate that a business has well-defined working capital policy which includes the policy on the level of current asset. So kung gaano ba dapat kalaki yung current asset natin. So hindi pwedeng sobrang laki, hindi rin naman pwedeng sobrang liit. Dapat tamang ano lang, tamang laki lang ng current asset. Policy on the financing the current asset. Okay, so under the policy of the level of the current asset, the level of the current asset refers to the amount of present assets that must be maintained in order to achieve the objective and goals of the business organization. So factors considered in processing of evaluating the level of current asset to be maintained. So first, yung nature of the business, yung types of items produced or sold, current industry practices, yung government policies and programs, manufacturing process involved, and credit terms of suppliers and to customers. So after considering different factors mentioned, a business may adopt one of the three types of working capital policy. So pwede tayong mamili no kung saan dito. Kung conservative current asset policy ba tayo when a business maintains a high level of working capital. So usually no, mas as accountant, we must use conservative current policy. Though you can still use other policies. Depende sa behavior ng business owner. So conservative current policy, yan when a business maintains a high level of working capital. While yung aggressive current policy natin, when a business adopts low level working capital policy. So kumbaga, kapag malaki yung, kumbaga yung cash nila binibenta, bumibili agad sila ng mga, tawag dito, ng mga pang non-current nila, kasi para mag-operate agad like equipments, plants, and property, ganyan. So, syempre, liliit yung current asset natin, no? So, ang mangyayari is, liliit yung ano natin, working capital natin. Or, panay hingi tayo ng funds, or, kumbaga parang kailangan natin, or madalas tayo nagre-require ng fund, or nangungutang, kumbaga. So, kapag mas malaking liabilities natin, yung current liabilities natin especially, then liliit yung working capital natin. Kasi yung working capital is equal to current asset minus current liabilities. Moderate level working capital policy when a business considered to maintain not too high or too low working capital. Yan. So, parang mas better no either conservative or moderate. Significance of the working capital level. So the level of working capital suggests two important concerns for the financial manager. These concerns are as follows. So yung risk, no? Yung concept of risk. Return on investment. When most of the current assets are tied up to receivable and inventories, the business will address the following question. How shall the business finance its current asset? What financing policy shall be adopted? Okay, so when we say temporary current assets, are portion of current assets that fluctuates and varies in relation to the seasonal or cyclical movement of the sales. So these types of current asset is normally converted into cash within the normal operating cycle of the business. While yung permanent current asset naman, a portion of current asset that accumulates and remain fixed through operating cycle. So for example, level of inventories displays in the shelves, the type of current asset is not normally converted into cash within a normal operating cycle of the business. Okay. So policy, again, another policy on financing the current assets. Terms defined in this section is spontaneous debt. It refers to the short-term debt that arises from the normal course of business operation. Examples include accounts payable, notes payable, and accrued liabilities. So a spontaneous debt is normally classified as a current liability. So non-spontaneous debt, it refers to debt that arises not from the ordinary business activities, but from borrowing from bank loans. A non-spontaneous debt can be classified as either a current or long-term liability. So total permanent assets, it is the sum of permanent current assets and fixed assets. So yung fixed asset is another word for non-current assets. Okay, so in financing the current asset or working capital, the business can adopt the following modes of financing. So we have the aggressive approach, conservative approach, and the maturity matching approach. So types of asset, pag aggressive, total temporary asset, and part of permanent assets. Short-term, non-spontaneous debt. Yan. Part of the permanent current assets and the total fixed asset, long-term debt, equity, and spontaneous current liabilities. For conservative approach naman, yung type of asset nila is part of temporary current assets. Pag source of fund, dapat short-term and non-spontaneous debt. Part of temporary current assets, and total permanent current assets and fixed assets. So yung sources of funds nun is should be long-term debt, equity, and spontaneous current liabilities. Maturity matching approach for the type of assets or temporary current assets. So the sources of funds should be short-term and non-spontaneous debt, total permanent current assets, and total fixed assets. So the sources of fund is long-term debt, equity, and spontaneous current liabilities. Okay, so do we have any question? So actually, wala naman tayong business ethics. So more on business finance pa naman tayo ngayon. May question tayo, guys, before we end this discussion? Okay, so if wala pa naman, okay, we can now end this meeting or this class. So let's see each other na lang by Thursday for the entrepreneurship. Okay, so again, no, for the leaders, you can now consolidate all types of expenses. And then magbi-meeting tayo. Pero next quarter pa naman siya. Pero at least, di ba, meron na kayong list para makapagpa-schedule kayo kung gusto niyo nang mauna or not. Okay, so thank you guys for those who attended this afternoon. Bye.